you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. I'm really, really in a good place and I feel great. How are you?
I'm also doing well. I'm teaching this quarter. Classes are almost over, which means I'm about to reclaim my time. I know you're busy as well. We'll probably talk about this project that you're maybe working on potentially. We'll talk about Black Men Build and
Mhm.
really how do we organize in 2025 in cities and on digital media. I'm really excited to get into it.
Same, same. I'm very excited about the opportunity. Thank you.
So can you just tell me a little bit about, who you are, where you come from, and how did you get interested in community organizing, I guess?
Yeah, so I am the oldest of four boys. I'm the son of a preacher and a teacher. I was born on the south side of Chicago, a neighborhood called West Englewood.
Hmm.
I grew up an avid reader. I'm a nerd. These glasses are not for show. I have put in many, many years of being a reader and a studious person, but that's how my father and my mother raised me. My father graduated from high school, but didn't go any further. But he's a genius, and he's a genius. He was on Jeopardy when I was in third grade. And my mother got her mathematics degree when I was 14 years old, her master's degree, raising four boys. So they always instilled in us and in myself the power of education and the necessity of it. And so for me, that is a big bedrock, a reason for my being, having these parents who made us read, who understood history, who drove us around the city of Chicago and showed us where Fred Hampton was murdered or showed us different neighborhoods that looked way better than the ones that we lived in and explained to us why things were the way that they were politically. They wouldn't say that they were political people. They wouldn't pronounce to be, Marxists or socialists. But my mom was a part of the teachers union in Chicago, and my father was always talking about how rotten Richard Daley was, the mayor of Chicago, and how they were mob people and how they ran the city like it was their own personal piggy bank. So that animosity, that anger, that angst about the haves and the have-nots was definitely a deep part of my growing up and my childhood. Also grew up very religious. And so you grow up with faith as being a part of your being. Maybe we don't have everything that we need, but we will. If we pray and we come here, we come to church and we rejoice and so that's a big part of my upbringing. I have a dog. I'm a dog lover who likes to bark during my calls. Um, so these two things are very, very important to me. We grew up poor, we grew up deeply religious, and we grew up very, very aware of what was happening in the world and why it was happening the way that it was. And so these are they made me. I wound up graduating from high school and going to a black college, Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. That university, just like my family and my church and my schools growing up, that university is a big part of my story. I got into organizing when I was at that school. I joined student government. I joined a fraternity. I graduated with a business degree. I learned how to tie a tie and which fork to eat with and all the different accoutrement that you need to be a black person graduating from a black college. But I also learned the shortcomings of that respectability and that way of being, that black conservative nature that permeates most of our HBCUs. But that was the place that I first started organizing. So that's a little bit of history of me. I know we're going to talk about community organizing a little bit more, but those things are very important. And the organizing piece was around a young man named Martin Lee Anderson. In 2005, he was murdered in a boot camp when I was a student at Florida A&M. And that was my first time ever doing any type of community activism work. And I call it activism then, organizing now. I was an activist then, and I do think those are different. Maybe we'll tease that out, but that's how I came to community organizing. Growing up poor, growing up religious, growing up angry about probably both of those things actually. Going to a black college and getting thrust into what was became a national case at the time, and being in a place that told me that we had to do something about it.
That's amazing. I'm jealous of your upbringing. I wish I had political parents. My mom was a teacher. I very much appreciate them. They also instilled education, not so much an awareness about power. I had to get that when I was getting older. But I also want to shout out Chicago. I'm on the south side of Chicago right now in Bronzeville.
Okay, okay, yes, sir. I have many, many, many experiences in Bronzeville.
Love Chicago. It's just we could probably spend an hour talking about just how great Chicago is and how much it's given to the U.S. culture, but we don't have time for that. I do want to talk about, now that you're grown up and you've had these foundational experiences, it sounds like you've really taken it upon yourself to organize, particularly Black men, in our
Yes.
community. And I do actually want to tease out the difference between activism and organizing, because maybe it seems like Black men build might do both. I'm curious, what is your process? What is your method? How do you think about organizing today?
Organizing includes acts of activism. Activism sometimes includes forms of organizing, but to me, community organizing is the daily work of growing organization towards a goal. Um, Activism is, the root word is an act. And I think a lot of people are drawn through the doorway, including myself, of activism, where we're going to actions, we're going to activities, we're going to activations, we're going to protests, we're going to marches. All of those things are incredibly important, in particular in the US, where every day we're kind of miseducated against what's going on in the world. These acts bring awareness to what is really going on. Organizing is a lot more mundane. Okay. Organizing is returning calls, following up with people, making sure folks are coming to meetings. It's a long game. It's a concern with what will be here when I'm gone and how the organization can grow and flourish without being dependent on one person, one protest, one campaign, one activity. And so for me, community organizing is yeoman's work. It's an incredibly powerful work that is the sole vehicle for social change in the country. Many people think activism and big protests and marches on Washington, et cetera, are the reason that we have the lives that we've lived. But those were a part of it, big inflection moments. But it was the organizing, most of the time, led by women, right? But also there were brothers. We've got the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, and we've got a number of brothers that we can always list, right? We have days named after them who were a part of the movement to get us the lives that we live. The work of Black men build primarily is around community organizing and organizing our brothers and growing a powerful political force, is what we say. We want to give brothers, their families, their communities, all of the tools that they need to become a powerful political force in our communities. Let me get beyond like rhetorical flourish. The organization saved my life. I helped to start it, but it was because we needed it. I needed the organization. Women approached myself and a number of other people years ago and said, hey, we're not recruiting brothers. Brothers are not coming into our movement. They're not coming into our organizations. They feel like the movement doesn't care about them, that we don't love them, maybe. And we want to know why. We want to understand why brothers are starting to go online and join right-wing groups or starting to be trafficking in right-wing conversations that are deeply misogynist or deeply white supremacist when you take off the black face, deeply capitalist. We want to understand that and we want to intervene with that. And so myself and a number of brothers got together, and Black Men Build came out of a number of different meetings that we had all the way starting in 2019. And so our organization is providing political education spaces for brothers, providing men's circles so that we have a space to open up our hearts, providing opportunities for brothers to be a part of service so that men can join up with the rest of the Black community who are moving in liberation of our people and not being left behind. We're not leaving brothers behind. And so that is our work. Activism has a number of different places within the org, but if you were to ask anybody in our organization right now, what I just said, we're an organization. So we're concerned with growing membership and growing power with ourselves and with our community.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Obviously, as a Black man, I understand the challenges that Black men have finding community, loving ourselves. I think it was Bell Hooks who said, how can we expect Black men to love themselves when they're faced with so much envy and hate and misunderstanding, both within our own community and from the broader community at large? I mean, Black people, every Black person, no matter how you identify gender wise, faces some kind of struggle because this country
Yes.
is not made for us. So the struggles of Black men are just particular, right? And I think
Yes.
we sometimes just need those particular spaces to talk about what we go through, you know?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you create those spaces both online and also like in cities, right? Like you have
We
kind of
have chapters.
chapters, yeah.
Yep.
So can you talk about that like kind of online offline thing and like what do you do, especially offline? Because I think most people might find you online, they might see all your online presence, but maybe not
Mhm.
realize that you can actually go up and meet with Black men in a particular city. Not every city, but like in a bunch of them.
Soon, every city.
Okay.
So that's the goal. That's the master plan. Yeah, we do both online and offline. Where our people are online. Everyone's people is online, pretty much. But our people that we want to reach are online. When we launched in 2020, so this is our 5th year, we started with doing online mass calls. So, we had hundreds of brothers coming together every month to talk about the political concerns of the day. And so those were very, very powerful. But there's nothing like sitting in a circle in a room with, excuse me, sitting in a circle in a room with a living, breathing human being that you may not know or you're getting to know deeper, but you've been taught and socialized to believe you have nothing in common with, even though you all look alike and share most DNA. And to hear them open up in a way that you haven't before. That breaks down a lot more than just your emotional walls that you built up. That enhances our collective capacity to actually want to do work on behalf of one another. One of our beliefs, it's one of my beliefs, and I believe it's inherent in the way that we do our work, is that in order to grow a movement, people have to have empathy and be able to see themselves in somebody else. And in our day, you know, I think, I don't want to do the back in the day thing, but we are in a time of late stage capitalism with heavy isolation, heavy alienation, and less do people see themselves in another person or their experience in another person in a real way, more than just shares, follows, likes, but says, oh, you are divinely, if you're not spiritual, you're a scientific wonder. And I'm curious about how you got the way that you are and how our lives link and connect. And for us, the men's circle in person is a it's the tip of the spear. It's that does have kind of warlike connotations, but that's the name of our publication, Wartime. For us, this is a central part of growing a chapter in a city is to have a growing and consistent men's circle. And then we do the service and we do the political education as well. And we'll be launching some campaigns as the months go on. And the goal is truly for us to be able to start at a heart place, bring in the head space, bring in the spiritual, bring in a leadership. And there's no way you can get all of that online. You got to be able to touch somebody and sit next to somebody. And maybe a Luddite or maybe a conservative in that way, that I just believe there's nothing like knocking on somebody's door and talking to them and realizing like, oh, this person, or maybe I don't know you at all, but we had a great conversation at the door. There's nothing like going to a meeting and meeting somebody new. There's nothing like going to a bookstore and just talking to somebody. And I know, we'll edit out some of my little tangents, but I was reading an article 2 weeks ago that Barnes and Noble, which was on it was on its deathbed, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe longer, is opening something like 70 locations this year because people are desiring of places to go, third spaces to be, to experience other people. And so they're researching. And obviously they've got more capitalistic intentions, but I think they're queuing in on a very real thing that all of us know, that being with other people in real life can never, will never be second fiddle to just clicking like and scrolling all day.
I completely agree. When I started my organization here in Chicago, which is a streaming platform, it was all about online videos. We made sure to have an event in Chicago first before we put it online. And that had so many benefits. Things that would never happen online happen in cities. People would just meet and they would start collaborating, right? Like
Yes.
you'd be a screenwriter and you need a director of photography and you could DM someone, but when somebody sees your face and they see that your passion and your real intention, it's so much more powerful. And I think that
Yeah.
goes for everything. I think it's also a very Chicago thing too. I just feel like folks from Chicago know what organizing is and knows that it's a heart-centered, it's a corporeal in your body kind of thing at the end of the day.
Yes. Yes. I
Uh,
agree.
so I also want to talk about the online stuff
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
said people find people online. This is where everybody is, especially young people. That's where they're looking for community. Before we get to all the things that Black men build, I'm just curious, what's your relationship with the online world, with social media? Um, when were you introduced to all of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm laughing because my relationship with social media is one of I treat it like where I am now. I treat it like it's analogous to someone who, and I'm not making light of it, but someone who has diabetes and their relationship to sugar.
Mhm.
Um, I try to take it in doses. I try to measure it and make sure I don't do too much of it. And by and large, I don't have it on my phone, and I try not to indulge in it too much. That's me. Reason being, I love Instagram. It's fun to see photos and to receive those endorphins when someone likes what you're doing or your photo, or to feel like you have access to the whole world. Those things are intoxicating feelings that, because I'm 39 years old and maybe I've been able to maybe have a little bit of a realization that that is not real endorphin, that's not a real thing, that I'm able to, not I'm able to, I'm always trying to make sure I have a balanced relationship with social media. That's where I am. It's something I'm conscientious of, and something that when I let myself kind of go for, I realize I haven't even taken like but 3 breaths in the last 20 minutes because I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So that's my relationship to it. You were about to jump in though, and I
Has that always been your relationship to it?
no, it hasn't been always been my relationship to it. No, when one, I'm only on Instagram really. I'm barely on X. I have an X account, a Twitter account. I'm barely on there, and I'm never on Facebook, though I do have a Facebook. I'm just never on Facebook. And I've never been on TikTok. I don't have a TikTok or a Snapchat or anything like that. Um, and I'm not a big YouTuber either. You
Mm.
know, No, when I first got on Twitter, I used it as my own personal like public diary. I was real big on MySpace. I was, and when Facebook first hit, this is gonna be crazy for your assistant. I was in college, and I remember when students from I was at a conference. AJ, this is a true story. I'll never forget it. I was at a conference with students from around the country. I was a sophomore in college. A student from Harvard said, "You all don't have the Facebook?" And we were like, a bunch of us were like, "No." We're like, "We don't, what is it?" She's like, "Oh, it's this great thing. This guy in my school started it. It's amazing. And you all should try to get it at your school." Like, that's how I remember Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like,
I do, yeah.
yes, it was the Facebook, and it happened. And I was on it all the time. But um I'm not some like disciplined person. I love it. Like I said, I love it. I love the feelings that you get when you're able to just meet and talk to people and see different videos and move. And so I've been able to recognize that if I'm not measured with it and I don't create some boundaries around it for me, that I'll just be on there and delude myself into thinking I'm this, and or even worse, thinking other people are whatever they say, and then comparing. And so yeah, I've realized what it does to my mental health and my ability to be the person that I want to be in the real world. And so I kind of keep it like this. I post, but try not to scroll, and try not to look at the likes, but for maybe an hour after.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm about your age, so I have a similar story, and I also try my best to do it in doses. It's funny, the language you're using is like right off the first page of my book, where I talk about like how I have this like personality of I've had a personality of binging. You know, I used to love sweets and sugars. I used to binge a lot, and then you get older and you're like everything in moderation. You just got to be very careful what you intake into your body, be it physical food or
Mm-hmm.
mental, you know? And so I've had to have a distance relationship with it because it can really get you in your head and warp your perspective of reality, even as it helps connect you to people and information. And I do find out things that I appreciate knowing by being on social media, especially from like people I know and are close to who are posting updates that maybe they don't have time to text everybody or whatever. But it's a delicate balance. And I generally think that these companies aren't interested in our healing. And that's really why we got to have a distance.
At all.
But I do see the work that Black Men Build is doing on social media as a form of healing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm curious, as an organization, what is your social media strategy and how do you try to engage people on that?
Yep.
I do want to take a pause. I think you're a little out of focus if you can just do a camera
Oh, I just
thing.
realized. Let's see.
Now you're back in focus. Cool. So yeah, how's Black Men Build use social media?
Um, our communications director, Jeremy, who's in Chicago, a Chicagoan,
Oh,
um, it has been excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Oh, Lordy.
no, it's okay. Right on with it.
Work. Um, has developed a really, really well, I'll start over. Our communications director, Jeremy, has developed an incredible communication strategy for us over the last few years. We had a woman leading our department, and she went on to another opportunity, and he was working under her, and he kind of kept on what she was doing and grew it. Our strategy is we want our communications to educate people, to recruit people, and to give people tools. So I guess that falls under number one and maybe number two. So we're very underneath all the creativity of the design of the content of the scripts that we have. We're very utilitarian with it. If the videos are going viral, we're cool with that. But if they're not resulting in people going to the website and saying, hey, I want to join Black Men Build, or I want to start a chapter where I'm at, then we're not happy. So for us, if they're not hitting on one or both of those two things, it's really not as important for us. We want people in this moment. We believe that our duty as an organization is to wade through all of the clutter and the chaos that is the right-wing fascist that is in office right now, as opposed to the left-wing fascist or the middle center fascists that we had before. And give people clear, sober analysis of what is happening in our country and how it affects them and their families. And that has been our goal since the beginning, since we first started, and that will remain our goal. We believe that there's a lot of content out there, but not enough context. And so for us, how can we provide context to buttress the incredible amount of information that Gen Z and all the other young people who are on there and older folks that are online are receiving and giving? And, we think that is a really, really big problem with a lot of how social media is used. It's a deluge of content. But if you don't know how to structure them in your mind, you can come up with some bad conclusions. You understand what I'm saying? It's like I was talking to somebody a few days ago. It's like if you give, and this is no knock on Gen Z, but I have seen this tendency more often, but you also see folks like Kanye West and other people drawing wild conclusions without having context. If you have like a Mr. Potato Head and you know nothing about Mr. Potato Head, and somebody gives you the eyes, the ears, blah, 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 and you just put it together. You might wind up with the nose where the ear should be, or blah blah blah. You had all the pieces, but you don't know where they go, how they're situated in history, how they're situated in our today, how they're situated in an environment, in a circumstance that's bigger than yours. And so that's our goal with social media, with Black Men Build. We want to give context, and we want to give calls to action. Join us, join another group, join a partner, donate to us, donate to another group. Those are our kind of twin objectives.
Great. So I love the like focus on like purpose and intention, because I think that is part of the problem, right? With that deluge of content, it's like you get so many inputs. Human brains were not evolved to take in this much information and know what to do with it.
No.
Not at the volume that people are getting it. So you're all like trying to direct people to things. And I love, it seems like the primary intention is to build offline in some ways, or one of the primary intentions is to like get people off their phones
Yes.
and get people talking to the people in their own community.
Yes. Yeah. It's a big goal. And social media can be a powerful tool to do that.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, have you had moments where you feel like you could see that social media was serving that purpose? Like, do you think that the growth of the organization, like social media, is critical to that? Are there other kind of campaigns, actions, events, service-oriented activities that you think have been amplified because of social media?
1,000%. So this is what I also say. I have all these little sayings that make sense to me. But you have a microphone. The microphone is an incredible tool to amplify your voice. But if you have nothing to say, the microphone will not help that issue. You're still just a very loud person that has nothing to contribute to folks of substance. And I know we kind of dig that now, but my point with social media is it is absolutely indispensable today. We have a tool that previous generations did not have and probably wished for, and probably might have used better or been like us. But we have to have something to say and somewhere to move people for it to really be an effective supplement. It is a supplement. It is an add-on to the things that you're doing in the real world. That's my belief. It may be orthodoxy or traditional, but if you're not doing anything in the real world, then it means nothing to me. I've met so many people who do all this stuff online, and you meet them and you're like, oh, wow, that's an end. You've really got a whole other life. So to answer your question though, and not kind of rail against it, social media helped us tremendously last year. Black Men Build went on a 10-city tour where we went and did men's circles. We called it the New Men Tour. And it comes from a saying that we have within the organization that new men must be born. And so we had a tour where we were going around and doing circles in 10 different cities, doing political conversations, breaking bread with one another, laying the foundation for new chapters in some places, growing the chapters that we have in other places. And we could not have made that tour happen without social media. The tour was in 7 cities that we are currently in already, and 3 that we are not in. And in many cases, ironically and paradoxically, the cities that we were not already in had populations or turnouts that rival or surpassed some of the cities that we're already in. And maybe there's a number of different reasons for that we can't go into right now. But what I will say is we could not have made that tour happen. We could not have connected with the amount of people that we connected to. We couldn't have told the story about what we were doing that began a balloon kind of snowball as the tour went on. People saw what happened in one city and came to the next without social media. We couldn't have grown our organization, and I'll be shorter on this point, without social media. We launched in 2020 where you could not go outside, where Black men were getting killed in the street, where Black people were getting killed in the street, Black women were getting killed in their homes. And we were able to lay a foundation for our organization using social media. So at the end of the day, it is as I said, an indispensable tool for us that we can show where we had impact and we're able to grow in some areas, and where that translated into a growth in membership in a particular city, or growth in turnout in an online or an in-person event that we hosted.
Yeah, I think that like that 2020 pandemic moment was such an interesting lesson for people, both in the power of the digital and the limits of it. Because
Yeah.
we couldn't go out, we're like, oh, I actually need people in my life.
Yes.
But also, we all started using Zoom, right? And there's ways that we found to connect otherwise. I saw that on some of your channels, you do still maybe do Zooms, and you do like kind of use it as a tool for kind
Oh,
of public education and stuff.
you know what? I don't, and I haven't included Zoom as much in my analysis of how it's been hit, but Zoom, maybe more than Instagram or any of the other platforms, is central to how we do our work now. I'm exhausted with Zoom. I think most of us are. None of us were supposed to be in 5 meetings back to back to back to back all day. If we were still meeting in person, we would not be doing each other like this. But Zoom is super important. We host weekly political education setting meetings. We host monthly mass meetings, all on Zoom. Our staff meetings are on Zoom. And really, honestly, the first organization that I was a part of, Dream Defenders, our whole staff was in the same city, and we all came and we worked. And I think if you would have asked us in 2012 when we started it, um, how would we have a staff that is now located all over the country, would have been like, it just wouldn't work. All we have is 1-800-conferencecall.com or Skype,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and Skype isn't that good. So we couldn't even fathom it. If you wanted to work for Dream Defenders, you had to move to Miami, and it's different now.
Yeah, Dream Defenders, that was what kind of emerged after the death of Trayvon Martin.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
legendary
yep.
organization. And, super important, I think, like the power of those local organizations, did a lot of really important work. And yet you can be local and national at the same time now with technology, which is the good part about it. But I imagine to pivot that you also face some challenges with technology. I mean, Zoom fatigue is one, but I think on social media platforms, when you're out there on the open seas of the internet, and you're, fighting algorithms and I imagine maybe racist or whatever, you face challenges. So I'm curious, like, what have been some of your challenges on social media specifically, if any?
So personally, I'll be vulnerable. Personally, which kind of connects to the previous answer I gave. You know, Instagram has definitely caused me some issues in my personal relationships, right? My lack of discipline, and what actually amounts to a lack of integrity in some ways, around, like, just liking things and seeing things and looking at things, and all of those things that I know I'm not alone in. I talk to other brothers about. So for me, on a personal level, that's been a reason for my departure from really being on Instagram a lot, because I want to be able to maintain a level of integrity, and frankly, not knowing, how many people like how you look probably is helpful, in maintaining a loving relationship with somebody. I'll just be honest. You don't,
That's
we don't,
real.
just like we don't need to know how many people hate us. I don't think we really need to know how many people love us and love what we do and adore you. You just gotta chill on that. And I'm not always great at it, but and I'm single now, but I'm maintaining that level of, like, bro, chill out. And so maybe I'm being vulnerable and making it too personal, but that is a concern for me, because I want to make sure that I'm living my life how I say I'm living my life. And so personally, that's the main concern. I don't know why or how it's happened this way, but I've not received as much as, definitely women, but other people around me, hate messages online. I don't know what the filter is. I don't know what happened, but there was a period of time that I got some hate messages, mostly when I was working with Bernie, actually. I was on Bernie's team for a few months, and that was the most I was getting, hate messages. But to my knowledge, not been doxxed. I've not been swatted. I've not been, people haven't pulled up on me at my home. And so on a personal level, I have not experienced what maybe some people would include in the kind of litany of bad experiences that they've had on the online from online things. And I do think I'm blessed. I think I'm male. And maybe people just don't come at me like that for certain reasons or other reasons. Organizationally, the pitfalls and the things that we've had to watch out for, people have sent messages to our communications and said different things and had things to say about our politics or, the fact that we're lefties or socialists. But if I can speak on briefly, the bigger pitfall, the thing that we're up against as it pertains to social media, and tell me if I'm not answering your question, is the fact that we're up against a behemoth coming from the right, as it involves recruitment and misinformation and framing of the world, whether it's streamers, gamers, podcasters, YouTubers, or Twitter people, or just your run-of-the-mill Instagram posters. Most of the most prominent voices that Black men are hearing are talking about, high value women and low value women. They're talking about Black capitalism. They're talking about, how Elon Musk is a genius. It's the Black manosphere and the manosphere writ large is our biggest it's our biggest opponent right now, because even on the fringe of the manosphere. And what I mean by that is, like, you're not fully in the He-Man woman hater club, but you do kind of believe that, that there's a certain way to be a man, and there's a certain way to be an other than a man. And those things are detrimental, and they bled into almost every part of life. Now, these podcasters got the president elected. They were at and so to them, they already look validated, in the eyes of their followers. I went from streaming in my basement to getting invited to the inauguration. In some ways, it's really hard to beat that story. And so for Black Men Build, as it pertains to social media, that's what we're up against. That's how I would frame it. Less attacks on us and more, we're in a fight, a culture war for the hearts and minds of our people, our brothers, our sisters. And we're, biblical. We got a slingshot, and they've got AI, drones, and we're trying to figure out how to really show a true story of what the world actually is and what it could be, that doesn't get boosted by algorithms, et cetera, right now.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think that's the perfect answer to my question. I mean, I'm not happy about the answer because it's really terrifying and sad. But it's real. I think that the personal stuff is real. I think that, and those things are related, right? The ways that people maybe feel surveilled, police online personally, then lead them to some of maybe the worst actors in that space that amplify all the fear, hate, mistrust. That atmosphere is kind of breeding all of that. I think there's particularly challenges for leaders, because we are more visible. And so, I've gotten into trouble for liking things that I shouldn't have liked, not even personally, sometimes just community, just like, oh, like that person's post that I didn't like, and now I don't trust you. And, that's like an organizing thing.
Yes.
But also, yes, these algorithms do appear to be amplifying some of the most extreme, kind of hateful, or just like things that don't enable solidarity and healing. Like, I feel like the work of building solidarity with people who are like you and people who are different from you is just not as sexy a message online. It doesn't spread as far and as fast. It's a slower thing that these platforms, because they're so capitalistic, are not designed to do. And so you have a much bigger lift in terms of reaching your community and getting them to share and be engaged. So I'm curious then, do you do you have strategies to combat that? Like, have you
That's our
thought of,
whole,
yeah, what do you,
yeah, that's our whole work, man. And our strategy is we say and we live by this. We have a multi-pronged strategy. The circle and the in-person stuff is incredibly powerful. I'm gonna say this and I mean it. You put me in the human form at a barbershop against all type of algorithms, I'm gonna win. You could come to me with all type of stuff you read online. But bro, you got to bring it to the you got to bring it to the floor. Like I'm not the most persuasive person ever. You know, people are turned off when I go in sometimes. I get that. But there's nothing that beats human contact. There's nothing that beats human contact. There's nothing that beats human contact. And so for us, it's like, okay, you know, I hope you stay in that dark room watching YouTube videos for the next 20 years because you're going to have to come outside one time, right? And we're going to be there, right? We're going to be doing circles. We're going to be doing PE. We're going to talk to you. So that's our main, tactic. It's like we have chapters that feed people, that teach people how to fight, that teach people how to use or how to play chess, that teach people about politics, that are in the community and that you can see and touch that can't be beat on the online in the online place. I understand if you're in the middle of Nebraska or Idaho or something and you need community and you don't have that and this place has found it for you on a Reddit forum or wherever. I understand that. I'm just saying that most people have chosen that because they haven't been able to have physical contact. And so that shows me that it's still very, very powerful. Secondarily, but equally as important, as I said before, we're in the places or attempting to be in the places where people are. So we're trying to get our Discord up. Eventually we're going to find somebody on our team who's younger than I am and has time and wants to be a streamer and wants to talk about the things that we think are important. We have gamers already in the org. We're trying to figure out how to get them more in the space to, but it's kind of hard to talk about socialism while you're playing Call of Duty.
but I want to see that.
right. It's really there's a lot of contradictions right there, but we're attempting to be in those spaces because we have to be. And it is my belief, and this is, Dr. King and other people say, the long arc of the universe bends towards justice, and I'm not convinced that that's not true. I think the story that a lot of these guys and these people tell isn't gonna last. It's not a lasting solution to your loneliness, to your lack of companionship, your lack of money. You know what I'm saying? Their solutions are not gonna last, and so we need to be there and it's a long game. That's really, really how I see it, my brother. I don't know another answer to it other than we're going to be there when all of the what should be obvious cracks in their armor begin to become harder to hide. And we're seeing that in the administration. These stories don't last. For a lot of Black manosphere people, Kevin Samuels was like their patron saint of patriarchy. And that brother died like not to be getting down on people who have apartments, but he was talking about he had a life with plenty of women in big old houses. And he died by himself in some random apartment in Atlanta, and it wasn't drugs, right? These stories don't add up. The story of capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy doesn't add up. It does not create happiness. It doesn't create lasting relationships. It doesn't create companionship. It doesn't create higher awareness, self-actualization. It doesn't do any of that. And so for us, it's like, no, we have another way. And this is the way, and it's cool, it's fly, and it will create material differences. But I know I don't have a lot of time, but I do think that's one of the things that we have to show, like how our way of the world creates material difference in the lives of everyday people, how they're going to eat, how they're going to play, how they're going to learn, how they're going to take vacations, whatever, under our worldview, and why ours is superior to this neo-colonial capitalistic wet dream that we're living in now.
Ashe, that's a word. It's a mic drop because it's the truth. It's a long game, and
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to win it tomorrow, but like you said, this stuff is running on fumes. You know, that when you started talking about, you know, the barbershop and providing food for people and really are ways of showing care. And
Mm-hmm.
those forms of care, that community building is the path to wealth and happiness and health and stability and all the things that is motivating why people are gravitating towards these kinds of folks like Kevin Samuels. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that really reminds me that what you're going back to is back to basics. I mean, you've used the word
Mm-hmm.
orthodoxy and whatever, but it really is just back to ancestral wisdom, which is just like
Yes.
we get together on a regular basis and we nourish each other, whether it's at church, whether it's in the town hall with food, whether it's at the barbershop, we show that we care for each other. And that is how we survived capitalism. That's why we're
Yeah.
still here. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think it is a long game, but I think you're going to win because the proof is in the pudding,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm curious. I think you've asked I was kind of asking like what cultural protocols, like rituals, ancestral practices you draw on, but it is that kind of ritual gathering kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. It's storytelling. It's the circle. It's man, I mean, when we do physical, like running or boxing
Oh
or
yeah.
through the neighborhood, these are, like you said, these are very basic things that human beings. I mean, bro, we're not that older. We're not that much older, but we played outside, man. We laughed. We went to shows. We showed up when we said we were gonna show up. And I'm not the best at always. I don't stand people up, but you know, one of my random other old man conversations is, yeah, back in the day, in particular for my mom and dad, if you told them you were going to meet them at a certain time, you had to do it. You didn't have a way to text them and be like, yo, I'm not coming. I can't come anymore. You had to show up for them. You had to do it because if you didn't, they thought you were dead. You know what I'm saying? Or in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is there are things that we know to be true already. Consistency, care, as you said, storytelling, vulnerability, showing up when we say we're going to show up, teaching, like, hey, I know this. What do you know? Shoot, happened today. I had this experience, bartering.
Mm.
These are all things that we already know in our souls to be real, to be true, to be effective, right? But we every day delude ourselves into re-believing the story they told us that these other things are working. So for me, that is what we do ancestrally. That is a connection. One thing we talk about in particular with the circle, we say it is an ancient technology. Black men
Mm.
didn't start it. People 10 years before us didn't started it. People have gathered in a circle around fire, around food, around issues and concerns of the day in the village, the tribe, the city, the county for millennia. And we need to rebuild that circle, and that'll be the foundation for everything else that we do.
Love that. Love that so much. I am just going to end with two questions. We're going to end on time. And that is, you know, what is one thing that you would keep on social media that you think works for you, for your goals, for your community? And what's one thing that you would change from these technologies? It could be a big thing, it could be a little thing, it could be a design feature, a cultural practice, a platform policy, whatever comes to mind. What would you keep? What would you lose?
I would lose followers and likes. Um, I would probably lose comments, but that would kind of interfere with the thing that I would want to keep. So I would lose followers and likes. I think those two things I would do away with. And look, I still look at mine, so I get it. But the thing that I would keep, the thing that I would keep You know what? Even though, probably some of them you really, I think groups, I know Facebook was really trying, Meta was trying to really promote that a few years ago, but I think groups, online groups, I don't want to police them. People are, whether you just love cats or furries or My Little Pony or, just wrestling, I don't care. I like some of those things. I would keep groups. I would make, I would make groups like a more fundamental part of the back end of any app. Like, what are your affinities? What do you like? Click on it, and we automatically add you to the citywide or neighborhood wide affinity group for that like. So I can know everybody in Miami that loves spearfishing, and I can automatically be added to that, and I could automatically just start talking to them, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and then the last thing that just came to my mind, and me being overly political, I would link. Oh, this is my tyrannical. I would link. Yeah, I would link your ability to create a profile on Facebook or whatever it is to whether you register to vote.
All right. Okay.
That's maybe a liberal tendency too. So I know some of my left people will be like, "What?" But yeah, I think we should find ways to incentivize that even more.
Yeah, civic participation. I mean, I feel like the groups thing and the voting thing is really about participating in your community in
Yeah.
all the ways that you can politically. And the getting rid of the followers, the likes is get rid of the brand management, get rid of like, it's all about me and,
Mhm.
the individualistic nature that social media incentivizes, then like the focus on the self and your own value individually, divorced from everyone around you. I feel like that feels really coherent to me. And I would
Mhm.
definitely join these platforms for sure.
Let's get this money.
Yes, absolutely. Um, this has been so fun. I just love hearing what you're doing, how you're doing it. It's so affirming and it's so great and gives me hope to know that there's people out you like you doing what you're doing out there. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk today.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor. I'm looking forward to being in space with you and connecting. So thank you.